So when it comes to the God-ordained relationship spouse journey, right, I often use the Saul to Paul analogy when it comes to their transformation, right? Because a lot of people in my one-on-ones and emails, even in the comment section, will tell me, oh, well, they'll insinuate that their person is too far gone for God, right? That them being in their free will is too much for God, that God is not going to be able to transform them based on how they are acting, how they are currently. And y'all know I read the word in chronological order, okay? So yesterday I had started the book of Acts and I got to chapter 9, which, as y'all know, is the Saul conversion. And I want you to listen to verse 1. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priest and asked him for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, capital W, as in Jesus, because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And Saul did not agree with this. He was killing Christians, okay? He was locking up people who believed in the gospel because he didn't want nothing to do with it, right? Whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. And listen, baby, I don't know your husband, I don't know your wife, okay? But I can almost guarantee that they are not out here killing people, okay? So the reason why I talk about the Saul to Paul transformation a lot is because Saul was literally out here killing Christians, and Jesus yoked him up while he was on the road to Damascus, changed his life instantly, right? And Saul became Paul, and he became a preacher to the Gentiles, and he wrote over half the New Testament. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me, right? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting, he replied. Now get up, go to the city, and you will be told what you must do, okay? So at this point, Saul, just to make a long story short, Saul is blinded at this point, okay? For 3 days, he cannot see. So in Damascus, there's a disciple named Ananias, okay? And God comes to him in a vision and tells him to go to Saul to place his hands over his eyes, you know, and so that Saul will be able to regain his sight, right? Now, mind you, Ananias knows who Saul is. Like, he knows the things that Saul has been doing. So initially, he's kind of scared, right? Because he knows who Saul is. And the Lord's like, no, don't be scared. I've already gone before you. I already have, you know, things ordained for Saul to do. You're good. Go do it. So when Ananias does place his hands over Saul's eyes, right, going down to verse 18, it says, immediately something like scales fell from his eyes and he regained his sight. Then he rose and was baptized. So immediately, right, Saul, who becomes Paul, had just had a supernatural encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus. Your God-ordained spouse is going to have their own personal encounter with Jesus. Amen. The scales falling represent not just physical healing, but a spiritual awakening. They have been spiritually blind, y'all. Okay, they have been spiritually blind. He immediately responds by being baptized, a public declaration of faith, right? Which some of them might do that, okay? Going down to verse 19, and taking food, he was strengthened. For some days, he was with the disciples at Damascus. Saul, once an enemy of believers, now fellowships with the very people he used to persecute, right? Eating symbolizes renewal and strengthening for his journey. In verse 20, and immediately he proclaimed Jesus in the synagogue, saying, he is the Son of God, right? Saul moves from persecutor to preacher immediately. Okay, there's no earning it. He starts to proclaim truth as soon as he is changed. Okay, and going down to verse 21, and all who heard him were amazed and said, is this not the man who made havoc in Jerusalem of those who called upon his name? Right? So they were thinking about everything that Saul had done, right? He was out here persecuting people, causing destruction, right? Everyone was shocked because of Saul's reputation was evil. Yet now he's boldly proclaiming Jesus. His transformation seemed impossible and confusing to outsiders, but it was real. So your spouse will have a moment of spiritual awakening, okay, through the scales falling from their eyes, right? God can open their eyes in an instant, okay? After God touches your spouse, they will need disciplining and strengthening in their new faith. Be patient during this growth stage, okay? Your spouse may have a sudden passion to live for God and speak truth, even if they were once far away, okay? Others, even you, sometimes may be amazed or struggle to trust the change in your spouse, but trust what God is doing, not what people say. Behold, I'm doing something new. Do you not perceive it? Just as Saul's scales fell, your spouse's blindness, pride, rebellion, worldliness can fall in one powerful moment, okay? It might look impossible now, but it only takes one encounter with Jesus, y'all. It only takes one encounter with Jesus, okay? Saul immediately started following, but he needed strengthening and community, right? Your spouse might change overnight, okay? But be tender and patient. Their soul will still need nurturing. Saul's past didn't disqualify him. It magnified God's grace. Y'all, you can look at every single person God used in the word, okay? He does not qualify he calls the unqualified and he qualifies them, okay? Your spouse's mistakes won't ruin God's plans. In fact, their testimony could be even more powerful because of what they came out of, okay? Just like people doubted Saul's change, you may face doubts internally or from others, but stay focused on what God says, not the fear, not the accusations, not the memories of the past. Satan is going to remind you of the past. You take them thoughts captive and you rebuke them and you replace them with the word and promises of God. Y'all, I really truly have more to this word, but I do not have time to do it. You know, TikTok only gives me 10 minutes, baby. So I'm gonna have to make like a part 2 or do another video either later today or tomorrow to go over the rest of this, because this was a jam-packed word, y'all. Like, even after I thought I was done, I wasn't, because God kept giving me more revelation regarding this, okay? But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and end this with the devotional for today, which ironically is taking thoughts captive for May 8th, okay? My hope is an anchor for your soul. Your hope in me will keep your faith firm and secure. Though the storms of your life rage, your spirit can be at peace, confident and calm that I am with you and there is nothing to fear. But your thoughts can stir up a storm and create a tidal wave of doubt within you as you struggle with the daily issues of life. You'll be tempted amid the temps to doubt what I promised you, to question what I've said, but my word is truth and you must rely on it at all times so that your emotions emotions do not determine your course. Okay. Any thought that causes doubt, despair, or fear must be made obedient to my word. Overcome the feelings that you are draining. I'm sorry, y'all. Overcome the feelings that are draining you in defeat by replacing them with my promises. Doubt and faith cannot coexist, okay? So fuel your faith with the fire of my word and allow it to transform your thoughts, making them obedient to me, okay? Let nothing move you and tempt you to venture off course. Your faith will overcome your feelings if you're believing what I promise you, okay? Simply trust in me, rest under the shadow of my wings, and I'll lead you safely through the journey, protecting you, providing for you, and giving you all the grace you'll need along the way, okay? And the verse is 2 Corinthians 10:5. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take every thought captive and make it obedient to God. That devotional was perfect, y'all, for this word, for this journey. You know, you take these thoughts captive and you give them to God. Don't think your spouse is too far gone. Anybody that you're praying for to turn to the Lord, it doesn't have to be marriage related, but because that's part of my ministry, because I'm on the journey myself, that's primarily what I'll connect a lot of things to from what the Lord tells me. But it's anybody that you're praying for their salvation. Don't think that because of how they're acting, what they're doing, that they're too far gone. There is nobody that God cannot touch, okay? There is nobody that God cannot reach. There is nobody that he cannot have an encounter with, amen? So you keep praying, interceding, and focusing on the Lord. Don't focus on what they're currently doing, physical situation, none of that. You have to view things from the spiritual eyes, amen?